State Line, St. Paul, Minnesota. Newton's Apple viewer found murdered. All clues point to field reporter. Rock star Ted Nugent squeals. Has Newton's Apple gone completely batty? Read all about it next on Newton's Apple.
Newton's Apple is made possible by a grant from 3M, encouraging innovative ways of looking at the world around us. 3M, innovation working for you. And now, here's your host, David Heil.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to Newton's Apple. If you're curious about science, technology, and the world around us, then you've come to the right place because we answer your questions. And our first one comes from this gentleman right here in our audience.
Hi, David.
Hi. Now, what was your name again?
Wade Berry.
Wade Berry. And you had a great question. What was it?
Well, I was wondering now, how is it that police can solve a murder when there are no eyewitnesses?
Curious that you should be asking that question, but it is an interesting one. If you've ever watched a mystery movie, you know that detectives check for fingerprints, right? But there are a lot of other scientific tests that authorities use to pinpoint exactly what happened at a crime scene. And thank goodness, because our field reporter Peggy Knapp would be in quite a jam if criminal investigators didn't use science to solve murders. You see, the other day, my colleague Peggy burst into my dressing room.
Oh, David, there you are.
Peggy.
Listen, don't believe anything anybody says about me, especially the cops, okay?
What's going
Listen,
on?
it just started out as an innocent story. Just an innocent thing, right? I had no idea it was going to end up in murder.
What?
Murder, I said!
Peggy, sit down, for heaven's sakes. Wait a minute. Now, start this whole thing over at the beginning, slowly, so I can understand what's happening.
Okay, started the other day. I was just sitting in my dressing room, just hanging out, minding my own business, and I get this phone call from a geology student, Wade Berry.
Okay.
And he says he's got this great story idea.
In Arizona while on vacation, and I think I found some gold.
Really?
At least I think it's gold.
Well, good for you.
I'm planning to have it evaluated.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, I was thinking gold mining.
We
might
set
be
up an
a great
appointment for
story
2 o'clock this afternoon. So off I head to his house. It's a very nice place, close to the station in a nice, friendly neighborhood. And as I'm walking, I hear a loud noise, a kind of boom of some kind, but I don't think too much about it and keep strolling along my merry way.
Hi, how are you?
So I reach Wade's house and knock on the door. And knock on the door again. Now, of course, I know it's rude to enter someone's house without a formal invitation. But something seems fishy to me, and my lightning-fast reporter reflexes take over. And as it turns out, my social faux pas is the least of this guy's problems, you see. He's quite dead.
Dead? How?
Shot, I guess. Couple of times at least. And there's blood everywhere, and the murder weapon's lying right beside him. And I pick it up.
You touched the murder weapon?
Yes.
Bad move.
Really, Sherlock? So I call the police, who arrive rather quickly, actually.
Thanks. You guys got
Ma'am, I'm gonna have to have your name, please.
They take my name and address and say I can go. So I reach for my sweater, and the officer says, "Sorry, ma'am, that's evidence." Evidence! And in fact, she says, "We'll take those pants, too. I got blood on my pants." They kindly offer me these lovely prison-issue scrubs. They assure me everyone's wearing them this year. Everyone doing 20 to life, that is. A definite fashion no-no, wouldn't you say, David?
There you, ma'am.
So as I'm making my way back here, wondering if the authorities will be able to catch this horrible person who snuffed out the life of a faithful viewer, I get to thinking, if this murder had anything to do with the gold that Wade had, the police are going to be looking for somebody who knew he had it, like me, for instance.
Oh.
And they'll be searching for various clues, like fingerprints on a murder weapon.
Or like blood on the clothing, for instance.
David, I'm gonna fry.
Oh, come on, Peggy. Don't worry about it. Look at it this way. The folks down at the coroner's office and the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, they're all working on this thing already. All right, would it make you feel any better if you and I went down there and checked up on the results of these tests?
Oh, David, don't be silly. We don't have to do that. You take the BCA, I'll hit the coroner's office.
Got it.
So, moments later...
I set out to snoop around the BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, that is. Their huge crime lab has a team of over 65 staff members who diligently work to solve crime through science.
But my first stop was the coroner's office. Hi, Dr. McGee.
Yes.
Hi.
Nice pants. Nice pants.
Now, Dr. McGee's report could prove crucial for me. If he could pinpoint the time of Wade's death to coincide with my arrival on the scene, I bet the police would be very interested in knowing that.
Well, what you do at a death scene is you have to examine the person and really examine them for temperature, for rigor, and for livor mortis. So I felt the exposed areas of his body, and it was rather cool, but the areas that were unexposed on the floor, that was warmer, and that told me that he had only been dead a short amount of time. Rigor, or stiffening of the muscles, after someone dies, a chemical reaction takes place where the muscles will slowly begin to stiffen. So you examine the fingers and the arms. His fingers felt slightly stiffened in nature, but not completely, again telling me he had been dead for a short amount of time, but not a long time. And then finally, you'll examine for pooling of blood. That's called livor mortis. When someone dies, the heart will stop beating, and the blood will begin to settle, will follow gravity. His blood had not yet completely settled, and then it tells us that he hadn't been dead for too long.
So how does that look for my story? Because I'm sure I heard that bullet on the way up to his house.
My guess is the person had been dead probably less than 3 or 4 hours, and maybe even less than that.
Oh, too bad for me. And this death was no gun cleaning accident. The complete absence of gunpowder on Wade's shirt proved the gun had been fired from too far away for that.
When a gun is discharged, most people think the only thing that comes out is just a bullet, and actually more than a bullet comes out. Flame comes out, gunpowder comes out, fragments of metal and primer come out. Now, if he had shot himself at 12 inches, this is what it would look like, so we know that's not the case. The gun was held back even farther. So this is not a suicide, and it's not a cleaning accident. Actually, it's a homicide, I believe.
So, who killed Wade Berry? But meanwhile, back at the BCA...
I was busy adding more pieces to the puzzle.
I have Peggy's pants I've been looking at.
Oh, she told me about these. Oh, yeah, and she said she got blood on them. Wow, did she ever? You know, she is really worried about this.
You know, actually, David, what we found out when we tested this in the laboratory, it's not blood at all. It's actually wood stain.
You're kidding me. She's all...
Wood stain? Why was there wood stain all over Wade's floor? And could that possibly tell us anything about his murder? Bart was about to show me how any fluid at a crime scene should be regarded as a potential clue.
Lift up your leg. I want to show you something.
All right.
Bending your knee makes folds in your pants. Now, if you were to kneel in a pool of, say, wood stain, no fluid would soak into the material behind those folds, and that would produce this very characteristic pattern. But then, we purposely created the scientifically predictable mess of fluids on impact. And Bart was able to point out several phenomena which will always be true. There will be no stain behind objects in the path of the impacted fluid. Smaller drops fall close to where the impact occurred and never reach the outermost part of the spatter. Individual drops distort or finger, pointing in the direction the fluid was heading. And you can mathematically calculate the angle at which a drop hit by measuring its dimensions. As an example, Bart dropped some fluid onto a piece of paper at an exact 30-degree angle.
Any fluid that hits a surface at 30 degrees will always make a stain that's twice as long as it is wide. And so we can tell exactly what angle a stain hits the surface.
Wow, so you could do this at a 10-degree angle or a 60-degree angle?
Exactly.
So, by analyzing the wood stain patterns at Wade's house, Bart calculated the stain to have dropped from at least 2 feet from the ground. And he made one more important discovery. There were no spatter marks on Peggy's pants, indicating she was probably not in the immediate vicinity when the impact occurred. Peggy's gonna love that part.
And thanks for the spatter job.
And,
meanwhile, Laura Nelson, who examines evidence on a microscopic level, was searching for teeny-weeny clues in the debris she had scraped from my sweater. Hi, Laura.
Oh,
hi. I'm Peggy. I'm the prime suspect
in that
murder.
Nice to meet you.
Laura had found microscopic pieces of glass on my sweater. I was sure they had come from that vase I'd broken, but there had been broken glass on the floor right next to Wade's body, and I couldn't prove I had nothing to do with that. Well, as science may have it, there was a test that could. It involved using microscopes and various oils to test the refractive index of glass, or in other words, how much light bends as it passes through a substance like water or oil or glass.
And just to demonstrate, I've got 2 glass rods here. Do they look about the same?
Pretty close to the same, yeah?
Pretty close. Well, we know in the laboratory that if the refractive index of glass is the same as that of the oil, the glass will disappear.
Well, this definitely looks like a tube of glass in oil, so that's not working.
Well, I happen to know that this glass has about the same refractive index as that of the oil.
Oh, it does disappear.
So that tells me that these 2 glasses are different.
Just as different as the 2 glass samples found at the scene. And the only glass particles recovered from my sweater corresponded to the glass from the vase and not to the glass by the body.
It tends to prove your story.
Yes! And sometime earlier,
Roger Papke had received the gun and the fatal bullet which were collected from the crime scene. But was this gun, covered with Peggy's fingerprints, indeed the murder weapon?
Well, we're going to test fire this so we get a bullet that we know was fired from this gun. Then we're going to compare it microscopically with the bullet that was submitted and see if it has similar markings.
The inside of a gun barrel is by no means completely smooth. A series of spiral grooves puts a spin on the bullet as it tumbles through the barrel. This allows the bullet to fly more accurately, but it also scratches the bullet in a specific pattern because these grooves vary from gun to gun. In addition, irregularities on the metal itself create tiny, completely unique markings on the bullet, which can be analyzed under a microscope.
Roger, what kind of bullet is this?
That's a .38 caliber bullet.
So, is this the kind of bullet that would come from the gun that had Peggy's prints all over it?
Yes, it would.
Oh, Peggy.
But we needed to test fire the gun to be sure. We compared the 2 bullets, and they looked a lot alike to me. But Roger immediately spotted a big difference in the groove patterns.
You'll notice on these that one set of rifling marks slants to the left and one to the right.
Oh, so this one here, which is the bullet found on the scene, the marks slant this way, and the one you just fired, the marks slant this way.
Right. That means one had a twist that went in a clockwise direction and one counterclockwise, or one right and one left.
So what this test is telling us is that the bullet found on the scene did not come from the gun that had Peggy's prints all over it.
Right.
Great. More good news for Peggy. While just next door,
Jan Tweedy was examining a piece of evidence I never even knew existed and which absolutely tied me and only me to the crime scene at the time of Wade's death.
Well, this is the appointment book that they brought in from the scene.
No, this is Wade's appointment book?
Yeah.
There it was, a 2 o'clock appointment with me, Peggy Knapp, and no one else expected within hours of the time of death. But Jan had noticed something unusual about the one morning appointment he had scheduled. The A in AM by this guy's name was rounded at the top, but all of the other A's in Wade's appointment calendar were thin and pointed. Some shenanigans, perhaps? Well, like everything else at the BCA, there was a scientific way to find out. In this case, the test involved a large machine called a video spectral comparator, which could shine various kinds of light onto the ink of a document.
Ink is a mixture of a lot of different chemicals, and some of the inks will absorb the light, and some of them will reflect it.
So, first we shined ultraviolet light onto the calendar. Well, it says 1:30 p.m.
And what does it say here?
9:30 a.m. And under infrared luminescence, I could see exactly how the 1 was turned into a 9 and the P into an A.
Oh, sure. Butler did it. Oh, I like that. The butler did it.
Good afternoon.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Jan. How are you?
Not too bad. How about you?
Good. I just thought I'd stop by and let you know I think we found our killer.
Wow, good.
Yeah, we found the murder weapon, a gun, hidden near Wade's house in a garbage can.
Garbage can?
Yeah, we traced the gun back to this guy. His name is Mark Butler.
Mark Butler, yeah.
He's a geologist. Got his photo from a previous police record.
I saw this guy.
Hi, how are you?
And then... David, guess what? I just came from talking to the police. Now, apparently, based on the reports from both the BCA and the coroner's office, they've already formulated a theory on what probably happened at Wade's house. See, it went something like this. Wade made the fateful error of inviting geologist Mark Butler into his home for an official evaluation, a mere half an hour before I was to meet with Wade. Butler confirmed that though he couldn't be certain without further testing, these samples would most likely constitute the real thing. In the heat of the moment, Wade made the last poor decision he would ever make. He naively showed Butler a topographical map of exactly where he had discovered his treasure. Awaiting my arrival, Wade returned to a project he'd started earlier, staining his kitchen cupboards.
Hello, Wade. I'm back. Thanks to your gold mine, I'm gonna be a rich man.
There was a struggle over the gold, but Wade would lose that struggle and, sadly, much more. The bullet went through Wade's arm, through his body, and lodged itself snugly in the phone book. Look under G for gunshot. Butler emptied the lockbox of all Wade's valuables, including the handgun I would later find, and snatched his ticket to Easy Street, the map to Wade's claim.
So long, Wade.
But on his way out, Butler noticed something else. It was Wade's personal appointment calendar, clearly indicating his meeting with Wade and putting him at the murder scene at the approximate time of death he knew the coroner would later deduce. Tickled by his own criminal genius, Butler altered his appointment time from 1:30 p.m. to 9:30 a.m. And to the naked eye, it did look flawless. Little did he know that science would prove his undoing. I'm not even a suspect.
Of course you weren't,
David,
Peggy.
thank you so much for all of your help. I will sleep so much better tonight. Oh, I'll get that. Newton's Apple, this is Peggy.
Yeah, hi. I've got this great story idea for Newton's Apple. I'm wondering if...
Yeah. Hang on, okay?
For me?
you.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, I've got this great
Yeah.
story idea. It's
Oh,
silver mine.
silver, huh?
Yo, Street Smart. Hey, yo, Street Smart.
What kind of fish is a sardine?
Slender it? A very small fish. A minnow.
It's a trick question. A sardine is not a type of fish at all. It's a style of serving. Putting any 4 to 6 inch fish in a can and adding oils and special seasonings magically turns it into a sardine.
Street Smart.
So join us now for another episode of Science of the Rich and Famous.
Hey, Ted Nugent. Can I have your autograph, dude?
Yeah, sure. How'd you get in here?
My third cousin's the janitor.
Thought I recognized the resemblance.
Like, how do you get your guitar to make that screaming sound?
Feedback. The bane of parents everywhere. Plain and simple, kid, it's physics.
Huh?
No, physics. You see, my vacuous friend, physics is the science of matter and energy and of the interreactions between them. In the case of my guitar, the almighty whackmaster, the energy ultimately transforms into sound waves of extreme volume and exquisite tone.
Whoa, waves. Excellent.
Ah, and brain waves, also excellent. My guitar is mostly solid, so when I pick a note, the vibrations of the strings have nothing to strengthen them to make them heard. So, we use pickups. Ooh, and it's a keeper. The pickup is a magnet wrapped in coils of wire. Move any wire in the presence of a magnet and current will flow. The pickups translate the string's vibrations into impulses of electricity. The frequency of the electric impulse matches the frequency, or pitch, of the vibrating string. The note that goes in here comes out here, okay? Okay, the impulse is pretty weak, and I hate that. So it travels through this wire to the amplifier. My friend, the amplifier, takes the weak impulse and feeds it voltage and makes it big and strong, kind of Ted-like, strong enough to power a speaker and the youth of America. The speaker transmits sound by converting the electrical impulses into air motion, commotion. Excuse me. Like the pickup, a speaker also has a coil of wire and a magnet. And as the electrical pulses enter the coil, a magnetic field is generated, a field that switches polarity with the alternating current. This field interacts with the magnetic field of the permanent magnet. And what do two magnets do? Attract or repel. This transfers the electrical energy into air motion, motion here in the speaker cone. This is still good for country and western. Okay, now comes the good part. Feedback. Whoa, has a nice ring to it. Feedback happens when those recreated sound waves come back at me from the speaker. If my note is amplified with enough power, which it is, some of the sound waves will hit the vibrating guitar string, re-vibrate it along that same frequency, and re-amplify the note, creating a loop. And each re-amplified note happens a little later, creating a time delay effect. This is feedback, and I love it. You know what happens when you stick a microphone up to a speaker? Sorry, man. But if I strike just one or two notes on my guitar, I use just a few frequencies, and I can control it. Watch me. By increasing the volume or by changing the distance relationship between my guitar and the speakers, I can manipulate the tone to create a stranglehold baby.
Welcome to this week's Science Try It. Today's game is a cold one, and the players include an ice cube, some salt, and a string.
And there's the whistle.
The ice cube is placed into the water, the string now dropping onto the ice cube.
Ooh, now the salt is poured onto the ice.
And the string is being pulled out. Oh, but wait, a timeout's been called. Let's go to the Super Science Breakdown.
Salt lowers the freezing point of ice and melts it. In the process, heat is removed from the wet string.
But will that cause the string to freeze?
To find that out, you'll have to try it!
I'd like you to all take a really close look at this little black box gadget here. Now, you're going to find this hard to believe. This happens to be a bat detector. When I turn the switch on, if we listen in close, we could hear... You hear that? Believe it or not, that means there is a bat in the studio here somewhere. Yeah, I figured I'd get that kind of reaction. And sure enough, you all should have known that if we had a bat in the studio, not far behind would be our naturalist, Nancy Gibson. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you.
So we are getting bat noises on our little detector.
We absolutely are getting
Why
bat
is that?
noises. Well, because I have a big brown bat in my hand.
Aha. And it was sending out some sort of message that we picked up here,
Sending out those ultrasonic sounds,
You
and that's
call
what
that
you were hearing.
Big?
Yes, this is the big brown bat, the most common bat we have in the United States, and the myths are far larger than the bat.
See, what were you worried about, folks? Now, there are things we worry about when we think about bats, though. Now, what's something that you would worry about?
I worry about rabies.
All right, that's a fair concern.
That's a very good question, and like any mammal, bats can contract rabies, but your chance of getting bitten by the neighborhood dog are far greater.
All right.
But rule of thumb, if you ever see a wild animal on the ground, don't pick it up.
How about some of the other common myths, like blind as a bat?
Well, they can see just as well as any other mammal, the small mammal this size.
Boy, you're knocking these myths down. 1, 2, 3, aren't
yep.
you? Nancy, I can't help but noticing there's a monster bat hanging on the wall back there. What can you tell us about that one?
That is a tropical fruit bat. Let's go take a look at it.
All right.
Now, bats are the only mammals that fly.
And that's a very distinguishing characteristic,
right.
obviously.
And 25% of all mammals are bats.
25% of all the mammal species on the surface of the Earth are bats?
Absolutely.
That would never have occurred to me. How many do we have in the United States?
About 40 different types.
So this guy isn't one of them, right?
No, this one's actually from Southeast Asia.
Glad to hear that. This one's big.
Right, but I brought that to demonstrate how their wings are actually extension of their fingers, and you can sort of see the little bone parts.
It's phenomenal. So they got a little toenail on that one and everything.
Right, and that helps them to fly. Obviously, there's a nice wings and a silent flight.
Ooh, just can't even hear them coming at you at night.
Right.
Now, a fruit bat. Eats fruit at night?
Absolutely. Or sometimes during the day.
Sometimes during the day.
Yep.
So it's obviously not a bug catcher.
Right.
How about the little big brown bat you have in your hand?
This is an insect eater, and I, of course, brought some insects along for you because...
Dinner time.
Dinner time. If you will take those tweezers and grab some mealworms, I have a very hungry little bat right here.
Mealworm dinner. Whoa, can't do
hold
that.
On there.
Got to hold on to my mealworms here.
Right, and see if you can feed him, I think.
Whoa, listen to that clicking sound.
Hear
What's
that clicking noise? Yeah, he's very excited. It's called a feeding frenzy. Now, they have the ability of echolocation, that put-put-put-put sound.
That I heard on the detector, right.
Right. every different species of bat has their own frequency, so they also all have their own FM
You
station.
tune into this
Tune
based
into
on
your
their frequency.
big brown bat, right.
That's amazing.
And that's how a lot of researchers actually detect and find out what kind of bats are around. But the process of echolocation is they actually emit ultrasonic sounds and wait for those objects to bounce back, and then they can actually make a sound picture instantaneously.
Of the room or any bugs that might be flying around in the room.
And where they're moving, how fast they're moving.
Now, once they locate one, in the dark, mind you, they can actually catch that thing midair.
Absolutely, and I've got some wonderful footage. Now watch this, David. They're actually throwing an insect up. Watch the bat.
The bat just nabs it midair.
Yes, they scoop it up at the back of their tail, and they bring it up to their mouth and eat it.
Now, when you say scoop it up with the back of the tail, they're actually sort of flying, and then they curve around the bug so it can't get away.
Can't escape.
Grab it, and go on to the next one.
Eat it, right. And believe me, they can eat so much food, up to 500 mosquitoes in an hour.
In an hour?
In an hour.
Now, you know, what occurs to me, this may sound strange to all of you, but it occurs to me that if they can eat that many mosquitoes in an hour, we should want bats hanging around our backyard.
That's exactly what this is. This is what I have in my backyard. It is a bat house. They will actually come and roost during the day and go out and fly and catch insects during the night.
Can we open this one up and see what it looks like inside?
Yep. This is a specially designed bat house for television. You can see it actually has the plexiglass in there.
And it actually has a bat in there doing exactly what we think of bats doing, hanging upside down in the dark.
That's right.
So why do they do that?
Well, all their toenails are back there, and they can support their body better. And also their legs are quite fragile, so it does protect them.
It's just more comfortable that way.
Right.
Terrific. So having a bat box in your backyard is actually good news for both us and the bats.
You got it.
Thanks so much for bringing the bats in. This has been great. Let's invite some of you folks down to join in the feeding frenzy here.
Come on down.
We'll see you next week on Newton's Apple.
Newton's Apple is made possible by a grant from 3M and its employees, dedicated to innovative thinking and scientific learning. 3M, innovation working for you.